750,000 refugees were created that year. Their villages were destroyed and their lands were confiscated. Those Palestinians and their children have not been able to go home since then. That was 60 years ago. In the summer of 2003, as I approached the Rafah border crossing that connects Egypt to Gaza, I knew that I would have to wait a long time before being allowed to enter. I ended up waiting 12 hours until I, along with about 150 other Palestinians, were crammed into a bus made to fit 50. We were then transported to the Israeli-controlled entrance where we were thoroughly searched before finally being allowed to enter Gaza. I was lucky that day. I only had to wait 12 hours. During those 12 hours, I met individuals that had been waiting outside for 8 days, just so they could cross a border, which normally in countries like Canada would take only about up to an hour, maybe. I remember a lot of things from that summer. I remember walking along the beach when I heard an F-16 fighter plane pass by over my head. I remember how unusually quiet the beach suddenly became. I looked around me and all the people who had just a second before been enjoying their rare moment of peace had stopped to look up and stare at the sky, fearing that this peaceful moment would quickly turn into chaos, just the way it did for Hodadalia 2 summers ago when his family was blown up by an Israeli gunboat. I remember seeing the remains of my great uncle's orchard that had been plowed by the Israeli army. Apparently orange trees are a security threat. I remember driving over what seemed to me like a ghost town and seeing buildings and houses that were either broken down to rubble or marked with bullet holes on every side. The unpaved streets were filled with garbage and sand and dust. My mother turned to me and she told me this was a refugee camp. At first, I didn't believe her. I couldn't imagine how families could live in these horrible conditions for a day, let alone 60 years. These families, along with most of the people living in Gaza, are not from there. They were expelled in 1948 from what became Israel and pushed into Gaza. It was then sealed and transformed into the miserable ghetto it is today. I thought the conditions in Gaza in 2003 couldn't get any worse, but the Israeli government proved me wrong. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed since then, and the situation has gotten much worse. The year-long siege on Gaza has taken the lives of many. People were killed by the Israeli military missiles and tank shells fired into residential areas. At least 100 have died in hospitals because there is no electricity to power the hospital. While pregnant women are forced to give up the C-section due to lack of evidence. Food supplies have also been cut off, sending the population into starvation. Fuel was also cut off, causing people to use canola oil to power their vehicles. But the streets are generally empty of vehicles now, and people have a hard time getting to the hospital during emergencies because of that. Many have died because they can't leave Gaza to get proper medical treatment elsewhere, from cancer patients to heart diseases. And yet, the biggest concern of the Western world is the proportionality of the destruction. This is why it's important that we support the BDS campaign. Where the powers of the world have failed to provide us a solution to this grave injustice, it is up to us to make that happen. We at York University have adopted the BDS campaign because we believe it is the solution. An academic boycott of Israeli institutions is an essential part of that solution and our main priority as students against Israeli apartheid. In the span of 2 months, we've managed to send a clear message to the student body and the administration that apartheid is not welcome on our campus. And after 60 years of NAKBA, it's about time we tell the world that apartheid is not welcome anywhere. Thank you.
Of the apartheid state, you are not speaking in University of Ottawa. You will not speak in the University of Carleton. You will not speak in Concordia. You will not speak in in your, and you will not speak on Toronto. We have Gold Shahidi with us from the Students Against Israeli Apartheid at University of Toronto.
You guys, we're going to do some chants, alright? And when we chant, we do it to celebrate resistance. We do it to celebrate 60 years of not only NAKBA, but resistance to NAKBA, resistance to apartheid. Free, free Palestine! 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 And how are we going to do that? Boycotts, divestment, and sanctions. We're doing that with our unions. We're doing that on our campuses. We're doing that internationally. So, what's our only course of action? Our only course of action? Our only course of action? That's not loud enough because I feel like some people are talking in the back. We want to hear all the way from the back. Our